Welcome everyone out to Utah in the Weeds. My name is Tim Pickett and I am your host. And today I have some pretty bad news. The audio for this podcast is terrible. Well, it's not the end of the world news like all the other news we've been listening to for the past year and a half, but it's bad news for me. My guest today is Amber Franke. She's a good friend of mine. I knew her in high school, and we've known each other off and on for years, and she really has an amazing story, and I wanted you all to hear it. So, one, you are going to have to go to utahmarijuana.org/podcast and read the transcript of this episode with Amber Franke, or two, load it up on YouTube and watch the subtitles. Or three, pay close attention and listen here. So folks, sorry about the audio, but I am really excited to bring you this story. She just has an amazing story. She was on so many medications and she tells you all about it. Be sure to listen to the end. Housekeeping items. The webinars are going really well, and they're a little more science-y, a little more educational. We do those every other Wednesday. Stay tuned on the email list at utahmarijuana.org. If you need a card and you want to stop drug trafficking, right? Stop driving to Nevada. Stop driving to Colorado. Just pay money to the state you live in. Go to Utah Therapeutic, one of our clinics, and have an evaluation for a medical cannabis card. Just excited today to get this interview out there as good as it can be. My name is Tim Pickett. This is Utah in the Weeds. Let's get into this conversation. Okay, so take me back to the beginning of cannabis.
Okay.
In Amber Franke's life.
I'm new at this. Cannabis is brand new to me. So despite getting pregnant in high school and having a child out of wedlock and all that nonsense, I was a pretty good rule follower. So I was the one that was like, it's illegal. Like, I'm not going down that road. It's illegal. Like, it just wasn't it was against the rules. And I don't play against the rules. I'm a rule follower. Like, I have to be a rule follower. That's just kind of who I am. So my journey with cannabis didn't start till after legalized.
So after what?
After it was legalized in Utah. The whole time cannabis was illegal, I didn't use it. I tried it 5 or 6 times in high school. But after that, I didn't touch it. I was on SSRIs, I was on anti-anxiety medication, I was on sleep medication, I was on all sorts of pharmaceuticals, and the most unhappy I've ever been. It wasn't until it was legal that I got my card and then tried it. So this is a pretty new journey for me.
That's cool. So you use SSRIs, you use normal stuff. It's not, you've lived in Utah your whole life.
I have.
How does that start? Like somebody like you who's not, okay, you don't live a mainstream life and in a Utah life, right? A quote unquote Utah life.
Yes. Yep.
I mean, we know each other a little bit more, right? So
right.
we're probably going to be a little bit more comfortable talking together just because even though it's not like we hang out, but we have this, we went to high school together. So I knew you in high school.
Well, and we ran in the same circles too.
Yeah. So you don't live a traditional Utah lifestyle. You use cannabis a couple of times, but then it becomes legal. Like, how did you find out? Were you involved in the process at all? Did you sign the petition, or it just became legal around you and then you decided, maybe I should try this?
The first time that I was like, I wonder what cannabis would do would be, I have a disabled child who's severely autistic. He was officially diagnosed medically at 8. And then he's been in and out of institutions, psych wards, inpatient, outpatient, step-down program. He's been to several different schools. He's been kicked out of schools. And the level of psych medication I was giving to my child was the first time that I was like, I wonder what it would look like if cannabis was legal for kids and adults with autism. But I didn't want to try it on him because the last thing I need is to go to jail for giving kids illegal drugs. So I didn't. That was the first time that I was like, maybe there's something to this plant. because the level of psych medications I'm handing to a 9-year-old twice a day and the side effects of those medications was criminal. It was so hard to give my child medication twice a day when I thought that there could have been a more natural alternative. So that was the first time that I kind of looked to cannabis as an option at all. Now, I've never actually, he's 18 now. I've never given it to him. He's never tried it. He's still kind of on the pharmaceutical train. But that was the first time that I started reading and thinking, oh my gosh, like there's so many other things that it can help with. And then in 2018, I think it was 2018, June of 2016, I tried to commit suicide. And I woke up in a hospital. Sorry.
That's
and the first thing they did was prescribe me more medications. And so I was in there for 8 days. And when I came home, I couldn't feel. I couldn't function. I was on all sorts of mood stabilizers. And I coasted for about a year. And then I just thought, I have never been more unhappy in my entire life. Something's got to give. There's got to be something better than this. So I took probably 3 years and weaned myself off everything. And then I got my med card. And then I started experimenting with cannabis. And then I finally found something that works for me, for pain, for anxiety, for sleep, for my mental health. And I'm off of everything except cannabis and a couple things for that. I have a skin. That's it. I don't need anything else. And all of a sudden now I have clarity on how to navigate hardship without the use of SSRIs. It's been life-changing for me.
It's just fascinating that we can't use it as a tool in the hospital when there seems to be so much anecdotal evidence that it could be a useful tool.
I was on 11 prescriptions at one point. 11. Only 4 of those were for pain and mental health, and the rest were for side effects of those medications. Of the medications. Yes. And I have some permanent damage from those medications that I do have to take. So I've been diagnosed with a hiatal hernia and GERD. It's not a hiatal. It was a hiatal hernia, but there's something else going on in my esophagus and in my stomach from something that happened with excessive amounts of like ibuprofen and Tylenol and things to treat some like TMJ. And I was on like prescription IV 800s for twice. I was taking more than the max recommended dose for 15 years. And it's done enough damage that I have to be on like heart medication for the rest of my life as a result. So yeah, I mean, there's so many other things that you can look at. And it's not just cannabis. Like, I feel like cannabis got me to a place where I could detox from everything else. And then I started paying attention to my mental health and meditation and movement and exercise and diet and sleep and water consumption and all the other things that kind of, that you need to be healthy. Healthy, right? Yeah. So you used cannabis as the way, as kind of like the gateway, right? It was the gateway drug for like this next step, or essentially the exit drug. It was the thing that like allowed you to take that next step and to say, okay, let's look at this a little bit different. Yeah, it forced me to a place where it could sand the edges of my pain and my sleep problems enough for me to have enough clarity to be like, I actually can take control over my life. And what do I need to do to get there? What do I need to do to be happy again? And part of that was quit numbing your feelings with SSRIs. Yes. quit it.
You
Because
feel
I
like
actually
SSRIs were just like leveling you out to
Dude,
the
I was
point
a
where
zombie. Yeah, I was a zombie for 15 years. I call it like the Walking Dead for me. Like I was in a state of, I felt enough to think that I was doing okay and that I was normal, but big problems I didn't have big reactions to. I was kind of just this melancholy, little tiny spikes and little tiny depressions. And it's not until you're in like in a really uncomfortable situation that you're like, oh shit, I have to actually act and do something because this feels terrible. I wasn't able to do that when I was on SSRIs. I didn't have access to those really big feelings. I could feel a little. I could identify, oh, I should be sad about this, or I am sad because of this, but it wasn't a discomfort feeling that forced me to change something.
When you said something that was interesting to me, cannabis, and essentially it sounds like the THC in cannabis was able to sand the rough edges of your pain. Do you feel like that? How is that different, or is it different than the SSRIs, dulling, making your life gray? So
Right.
I often describe it as like gabapentin is a good example of a drug that essentially makes, right, it makes your life gray. And cannabis allows people to have oranges and yellows and like colors, right? And gabapentin just kind of grays everything out. When you say sand the rough edges, is that the same or is that different? I might be getting into the weeds here a little bit more.
I feel for me, sanding the edges with gabapentin just sanded them so much that there was nothing left. Sanding the edges with cannabis or THC allows me to recognize that there's a problem, but doesn't debilitate my ability to solve that problem myself. So I feel like,
yes, this is really what I was kind of getting at, was hoping to get at, was this idea that by using cannabis, it's not that you're dulling the senses. It isn't that you're dulling the senses. It's that you're able to deal with the things that you want to deal with, right? But you're not necessarily suppressing them in the same way.
Well, but I also feel like there's a level of control on my end of it. So depending on how much or how I'm navigating it's cannabis. Like it's a plant. It's the same thing that I'm taking. But if I'm not having an extremely rough anxiety day, I don't need as much to go to sleep at night. Where when you have a pill, I was on like 50 milligrams of trazodone every night. And there was another one that I coupled that with that starts with a Z. I can't remember, that was a sleeping pill. And I would kind of get a hangover the next day, or I couldn't just fall asleep and then wake up an hour later. It was, I'm out for 8 hours and I can't find my phone the next day because I stuck it in the freezer,
Yeah, because that's the Z one is Zolpidem. That's Ambien. That's 5 milligrams Ambien with trazodone. And let me tell you, those are two. I mean, if you're on that and you're on gabapentin, plus you're on an SSRI, my God, you're on a lot of medications. And how you get to that? How we get to this point where we're putting people on all of these medications? See, this is my whole soapbox, and forgive me for being this way, but you're taking somebody's life away from them by adding all of these medications to their list and not considering something like cannabis, where at least it's a tool. Just like everything else. I mean, you're willing to put them on 5 FDA-approved medications, but you're not willing to let them try a little bit of cannabis. That's what society has really, I think, really screwed up 100 years ago. And by eliminating this and making it such a cultural negative, right? When we have done this, we are doing this to people. We keep doing this to people.
I think it's interesting too, because I mean, when I was on gabapentin and Ambien, like I would wake up with a jar of peanut butter in my bed. And
I know people with blocks of cheese, bottles of peanut butter. They've been out to the mailbox and done something, painted something. I mean, it's
But I would also look forward to those funny stories because they were something to brag about, which is so bizarre to me when I look back now, because I'm like, it was out of my control, but that was my way of being like, oh my gosh, I did a thing. but it's because of the meds I'm taking. And now I have this new accountability where I'm like, I don't actually get to make that excuse anymore because I'm not on those medications. So now I'm making better choices in my everyday life, so I don't have stories. I still have stories, but
Sure.
they're within normal range. Like my story today, I DoorDash when my kids are in school. I DoorDash for extra money. And I was DoorDashing, and as I was putting a fizz order with 4 sodas in it in my car, I hit my handle and spilled all 4 sodas in my stupid choice, but I was able to laugh about it, and it had nothing to do with anything with me not slowing down. You know, and given those two, I would rather have that story than I did a thing.
Do you like this? Totally off topic. Do you like you DoorDash fizz? Do people actually literally DoorDash fizz?
Dude, I like some of my weird DoorDashes have been, my favorite are to nursing homes or hospitals, because I will pause my dash and have a conversation with the Alzheimer's patients. But I have picked up flower arrangements from like Smith's Marketplace and walked into a funeral home with a tank top and short, not dressed appropriate at all, and like delivered flowers in the middle of a funeral.
Oh my God. So can I door? Is it like TaskRabbit? Do you know what that is?
I don't know what
it's like DoorDash. Like I can go on DoorDash and I can order just anything, or they have to be a business that associates with DoorDash.
They have to be a business that associates with DoorDash, but grocery stores do. And so the flower order, I was like, okay, flowers. I guess I'm delivering flowers. And then I go to like Rustin Brothers on Main Street, Bountiful, and I'm like, oh my God, there's all these cars there, and I'm like, I have to walk in looking like white trash. Like, this is great.
Oh my gosh, this is great. You can't. I mean, the fizz thing. Okay, sorry. The fizz thing is crazy. I just cannot. For all of you out there, listeners, I do not like that we have fizz. I do not like that we have sips. I do not like these places. You know, and yet once in a while, I'll go to Beans and Brews and get my coffee. So yes, I'm a hypocrite. I totally am a hypocrite. I'll buy my coffee at a drive-through.
You're a human.
But man, your Diet Cokes and your vanilla whipped cream thing, I don't know. I cannot figure out. It's like, and it's a Utah thing.
Oh my gosh,
these things are huge. And then not only do you go, but you DoorDash.
Yeah. You can DoorDash Little Caesars pizza now.
Holy shit! It's more money to DoorDash it than to buy the pizza.
I know. Like, I delivered a $10 Little Caesars order and got paid $6 to deliver it. Less than 3 miles away from Little Caesars.
And you know what? Again, this side of me though, I've done the Costco delivery. I've done the Instacart, and man, I love to have that stuff. If you can afford it, you can do it,
because you know what? It keeps people like me who are DoorDashing, keeps me from having to get a real job.
Well, that was my next question was, you know, if you've got kids in school and you've got an incredibly flexible schedule, so you can do that. And if you're making enough extra money and you don't have to go work a full-time or a part-time, like, you know, you can do this gig economy. It's really, on that side of it, is really cool.
Yeah, I really like it. Because it does open up. I have one that's disabled, and he's at a post-high program called Vista down the street from us now, but he does a hybrid schedule. So he's only in person 2 days a week. He's home the other 3. So I would love to get a full-time job somewhere, but I don't have that kind of flexibility. So for me, it's like when he's at school, I can DoorDash, and I usually average right around $20 an hour when I'm DoorDashing. And I've got all the apps that count my mileage, tell me how much I have to take out for taxes and all that kind of stuff. Different savings account that I plug it all into.
Yeah. So do you feel like, how long have you been doing this? Do you credit cannabis for helping you figure all of this sort of stuff out?
100%, yes. Because I think it cleared my vision enough to make the major life changes that I needed to make without the fear attached to what that's going to look like.
What did the legalization mean to you? Would you have done this if it wasn't legal?
No. Nope, I wouldn't. I'm a rule follower. I wouldn't have. If it wasn't legal, I would be too scared to get caught or have something happen that I would have to then answer for. No, I would have never tried it. For medicinally. I mean, I did it a few times in high school. I mean, everybody kind of experiments with different things. But no, if it wasn't legal, I would have never tried it. I would probably still be in an abusive marriage and a stay-at-home mom with disabled kids and trying to avoid breakdowns and psych wards for the rest of my life.
Do you like that Utah is a medical program versus adult use or recreational program?
I don't think that's even a fair question to ask me, just because I wouldn't use it recreationally. Like I don't. The first few times that I even like upped a dose on a gummy, I'm like, I have to make sure I'm not going anywhere tomorrow. Like I have to. I'm very careful with my consumption as it is anyway. I don't know that I would actually use it recreationally. I don't know if there's really a difference though, because once you get past that place of like getting high, it doesn't have the party vibe anymore. Like that kind of goes away.
It does for a lot of people. I definitely agree. There's a point which you understand, you know what's going to happen, right? You know, I'm going to take this and I know pretty much exactly how I'm going to feel in an hour, right? Because I've done this before. I do this every day or every few days or when I have a bad day, whatever it is. And you're used to that. And that is not really recreational. That's, what would you call that? I mean, how do you view that? Do you ever, because I know on the other hand, there's people who would use it quote unquote medicinally, but then, I'm a musician or I paint and I like that creativity that it gives me or something like that. Is there a difference with that? I don't know.
I think that's up to the individual, don't you? I mean, for me, I was taking it. The reason I started taking it, because I was coming off my SSRIs anyway. I was coming off my anxiety medication anyway. So whatever the outcome of that looked like for me, I was going to be fine. The main reason I tried it what I told myself, okay, I'm going to allow myself to try it for this specific reason to see if it helps. The excuse that I gave myself was my TMJ, because I was breaking 2 teeth a year and having to call the dentist and go in for an emergency dental visit when my teeth are splintered, my molars are splintered from clenching my teeth and teeth TMJ. So for me, it was like, I'll just use it at night. I'll just use it for sleep. And if I break a tooth, then I have it for pain. So that's what I qualified under. Like that's how I got my medical card. And it wasn't until I started to experiment, because I tried the flour, I tried the capsules, I tried the tinctures, I tried the stuff you rub on your jaw, like the balms. I tried out the vape, I tried all of it. And that's when I noticed, holy shit, this is actually helping my anxiety. I wonder what would happen if I used it during a panic attack. And so I would try it that way. And I think that's when I was like, oh my God, this isn't just a party drug. This is actually, and there's so many uses, like there's so many different things that this is helping with.
I know it's not like, I'm letting you talk because we're having this conversation, but it is like, wow. And it's not the cure for everything. We don't cure very many things with cannabis, but we're just, hey, human beings like to manipulate their environment. They like to manipulate things, right? We know we eat certain things and we have more energy. We know that's how we are. We learn to do these things and we learn to use different products. We drink coffee in the morning to help wake ourselves up. We use cannabis to help ourselves feel a little better, right? Yeah. And if you have pain in your jaw,
Yeah,
no, it's not bad.
Once you're really a bad thing, if you especially like during a panic attack, the Xanax that I would take would last 4 or 5 hours, and I would be knocked out. And like I would have a panic attack, I would take a rescue medication, and I would go to sleep, and I would be asleep for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours, and then I'd wake up starving, and I'd wake up and I'd eat, and then I would feel like crap because I would feel guilty for having a panic attack and I'd beat myself up, and my mental health would just plummet. And then depression would set in. And then sometimes I wouldn't get out of bed for 3 or 4 days. And then I would start to worry. And then another panic attack would happen. And I'd take another Xanax. And it was the same cycle over and over and over again. When I started using cannabis, and I thought, I wonder what would happen if I just smoked some flower or use the vape. My panic for 20 minutes, and I would be like, I think I got this. I think I can handle this. I think I can do this. And then I would almost like elevate to this different like mindset. And then I'd talk myself back down and I would be okay. And then I was ready to like continue the day, not as if it never happened, but I maybe would have it up to an hour of, ooh, that was a rough one, and then I would be back to normal and then I could manage it. But what I would also do is process what triggered that panic attack. What am I avoiding? What am I not looking at? And what can I do to make that not the trigger? How can I expose myself to that trigger to make it so it's not nearly as impactful and doesn't cause panic attacks?
Are you doing this during the essentially like during that psychoactive period?
No,
Are you?
No, I think I'm unreachable in that moment. If there's a, yeah, it's usually reflection after.
Okay.
Yep.
You're basically saying, okay, the panic attack, we're going to put that over on the couch for now.
Yeah.
We're just going to get through.
Yep.
And then after that kind of calms down and everything kind of settles, then you can reflect, you feel a little better, and then you can start to get a little clearer.
Instant. Yeah, that part's pretty instant. So I might still have, obviously you're still going to have the cannabis in your system, but I'm not like technically like high anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm already tired and exhausted from the panic attack, but they never lasted as long. They never were nearly as intense. And then I was able to actually revisit that panic attack and try to identify the trigger. So I knew what I could do to avoid it being a trigger. And
you're doing a lot of work.
I know.
You really are doing a lot of work. Congratulations on like heading down this path. Certainly we all have places where we're still going, but you have come a long way
in a short amount of time. But I have to say, like walking into the dispensary and being able to ask questions legally without worrying about, I'm there at least once a week. This isn't working for me. This is giving me headaches. I don't like how this is doing. I need a different strand of this. Like I said, I'm a newbie at this. Like sativa and indica, I had never even I didn't even know what those were a year ago. I had never heard of those words before. So this is all kind of new to me, but knowing that I'm okay to walk into the dispensary and say, this is the issue that I'm having. How do we problem solve this? And having them actually take the time to explain things to me so I can understand it and put my mental health and my physical health back in my hands is huge.
When you finally gave yourself permission, was it to use this and to try it? It does sound like you really had to give yourself permission to experiment with everything. Did you like experiment with different delivery methods? I'm going to try the gummies. I'm going to try the vape. I'm going to try the flower. Do you feel like that's a big hiccup or that's a big hurdle for people, who basically grew up with you and me?
I think it's extremely overwhelming. There's so much information. Just walking in the first time with my med card, I felt really small because I knew that I was walking in as completely uneducated, never before interested in this at all, and I was clueless. And so I already walked in with the idea of, okay, you're going to feel stupid because you have no idea what you're doing. You have no idea. And you just got this card and now you're like free range, like you can do whatever the F you want. And so, but I was like, but I need guidance. Like I need help. I need guidance. And then being able to be like, oh no, you can try this and 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 just keep a journal and just kind of see what works for you and what doesn't. And then being able to go back and say, okay, I tried this and this and this. This didn't work for me for this reason. This didn't work for this reason, etc. And have them say, okay, try this instead, or let's try a different delivery method. I think that for me took all the judgment and fear completely out of it. But I didn't go crazy either. I mean, I went crazy buying everything, but I didn't go crazy trying it all. I did keep a journal. I was meticulous in what I tried and making sure I'd try it for 3 or 4 days to see what the effects would be before I decided to try a different method.
How long did it take you to figure out dosing, how you were going to feel?
It was 6 months of hit and miss. And there was a little bit of struggle with anxiety and a little bit of depression and being sleepy.
Mm-hmm.
But I would just go and talk to people and ask questions, and they would help me fine tune a couple of different things. And I know how my body reacts to certain deliveries now. And I like being in control of that. I don't like going to a doctor and having them say, well, you need 3 months before you have any sort of effect, and don't change anything because it's detrimental if you just stop taking that SSRI. And then I'd go and I'd suffer for 3 months, and I'd know on day 4, this isn't going to work for me. And then I'd have to live out that 3 months of taking this drug. And then I'd have to make an appointment and go in, and then they would adjust the dose, but they wouldn't adjust the drug itself. And I think that level of control in the hands of somebody that spent 15 minutes talking to you is kind of gross. And
you've turned it on its head, right? You're taking all the control. You make this is a very good way to put it. In traditional medicine, we have somebody who spends 15 minutes with you, and yet you're giving them 90+% of control over the medications and your therapy and your treatment.
You either take it or you don't. And do you have?
And you either take it or you don't.
Yeah, cold turkey and an SSRI.
Oh, it's not pretty. But but on the other hand, cannabis medicine is almost exactly the opposite. I'm the one who's giving you permission to use this medication, puts the fence up around the pasture, so to speak, and says, okay, inside this room or inside this area, you can do what you need to do. I'll be here whenever you need me, and periodically. Which might be a lot in the beginning. Yep. The pharmacists are there, the dispensaries there. Utah set up a pretty good program for that with the pharmacists, I will say. And now you have almost all of the control.
Yes.
And the provider is just there in case, or there to guide. Yes. I like that way of putting that. And that essentially is what allowed you to figure yourself out a little bit, right? Figure the drugs out, figure the medications, decide what works, what doesn't, how it works for
the drugs. I mean, it's everything. It's everything. It's taking control of every aspect of my life, and that includes the people I surround myself with. That includes the crowds I hang out with, what kind of job I want, or what I teach my children, and coping skills on. I mean, it's cleared the cobwebs out of the way, so I can actually function.
Mm-hmm. And cannabis doesn't deserve all of the credit there. It just is just a little piece, right. and then you essentially do the rest.
It's not a fix-all, that's for sure. But I think for me, why it was so important for me is because it, like we were talking earlier, that it's just sanded the edges enough where it wasn't so painful that I could actually look at it. And then I already have, I can take control of what my life looks like and who I hang out with and the things that I want to do with my future and what I teach my children. And if I stayed on SSRIs, I don't know that I would ever come out of that coma, really.
I don't know. I'm glad you did.
Me too.
I am really glad you did. And I'm glad that we're having this conversation because frankly, there are people out there who they're still really lost and they're still in that gray area. And they just, maybe hearing somebody say, hey, I'm normal. I'm like you. Here's what I did, gives somebody that, that permission to allow themselves to do the same thing in their own way. And that's what's so cool. What do you see next for you? As far as everything goes, you're gonna keep doing what you're doing now. Sounds like things are going pretty well.
I think I'm learning how to slow down and kind of enjoy what's in front of me instead of always wondering what's going to be the next big step or where I'm going to be in 5 years. It's just a matter of enjoying, smelling the flowers, as they're presented in front of you, enjoying my children as they grow, enjoying, just existence and being okay with discomfort and learning how to be the best version of myself with the tools I have in the tool.
Did you go back to your provider and let them know all of these things? Have they been included in all of this?
Of course, yeah. I even went back to my dentist. Said, I'm not going to be breaking any more teeth. And he's like, dang it. No, everybody's on board. I feel like transparency is huge with me too. I don't believe in hiding or lying. And I think that's why I'm such a rule follower. But yes, I definitely went back to my doctor and said, we need to eliminate these medications because I'm not taking them. And he's like, well, what are you doing instead? And I have my cannabis card. And he basically gave me the thumbs up and said, good for you.
He's like, whatever works.
Yeah. And it's in my chart now. So he knows now that I do take cannabis. So any type of medication that I need in the future can. interact with that badly. So I think it's important to.
It is. And I think it sounds like your experience with your regular provider was pretty good. We get phone calls pretty frequently from other providers who are like, well, can I do this with this other medication? Is it okay? And we're starting to answer those questions. People are coming, slowly coming around one at a time. That's okay. It takes, one at a time is more than 0 at a time. That's fine.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. I love it. I think that now the next step is getting insurance companies to cover the costs. Yes. I agree. I think that's a big lift. Yep.
And I think working more providers into it so you don't have to pay outside, for the evaluations, lowering the prices of the medication, the flower, all of it needs to come down and be more accessible. The more we do, the more accessible it becomes. It's expensive right now still. It is. But
it's worth it for me, for my mental health and for what I'm doing to the insides of I don't know what kind of long-term damage being 20 years on SSRIs did to my brain or any of that stuff, So just being able, I'm the one that was like, I will be on this for the rest of my life. Like, there's no way I'm going to be without a mood stabilizer. Like, I can't function without it. And here I am. It's been a couple years now, almost a little over a year now, where I haven't had any SSRIs. I feel like my growth spurt is monumental, and I have nowhere to go but up. Like, it can't do anything better.
That's awesome. Do you have a favorite strain?
I think the one that the one thing that I will not ever not purchase are the gummies.
You like the gummies?
I do. I think that's right now I'm taking the mango peach 40 milligram gummy at night. And if I'm exhausted, I only take half of it. And if I'm anxious, I will take the whole thing. I like that, being able to fine tune that. And then the panic attacks, using the vape for the panic attacks, I think is the other one that I would probably never think about. That's
good.
Oh, and I'm off of because I was on ibuprofen 800s. I was on like a diclofenac or something.
Yeah, diclofenac. It's it's a name brand ibuprofen type medication. Yep, and all that's gone.
All that's gone.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I love these. I love these stories. I love I like people to take back control.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's nice too, because it's not a replacement. It can be, it's a replacement, but really for me, it was just opening my eyes to know that I'm mentally strong enough to do these things on my own. And this helps me get there. It doesn't, and it just doesn't make it it doesn't make my anxiety so overwhelming that I shut down. It actually makes it manageable that I pay attention to it and find out where it's coming.
Yep. Cannabis isn't doing the work. You're doing the work. Cannabis is just helping you to be able to do that.
It's clearing the cobwebs. Yeah.
Yep. Clearing the cobwebs.
Yep. For sure.
Well, this is awesome. Well, thanks, Amber. I really appreciate you. I appreciate your willingness to be open and honest with me, with people. I think it's just amazing. Congratulations.
It's been a journey. Thank you.
And if I'm ever DoorDashing Fizz, I swear, if you ever show up when I DoorDash Fizz,
you better tip me big.
Oh, big. don't you worry.
You better tip me big.
That's right. All right, everybody. UtahMarijuana.org/podcast is where you can find all of the podcasts. You can also subscribe to Utah in the Weeds on any podcast player that you have. You can download us everywhere. Amber Franke, it's been a real pleasure.
Well, it's been a pleasure being here. Thanks, Jeff.
You bet. Stay safe out there, guys.